This is the Disco Puppet, and you're watching Get My Go. What the fuck is Get My Go? Only an imbecile would say that.
So Get My Go.
Yeah.
This now.
Isn't it the dumbest fucking name you've ever heard? Like, what does that mean? Get My Go.
When you first said it, I didn't understand it, and I tried Googling it. Nothing. I don't know what the fuck this is. Sounds like, is this something new the kids are saying? What the fuck is Get My Go?
That's got to be one of the stupidest lines I've ever heard in my life. Get my go.
So obviously, I do a little more research with it, and then who the fuck's this Johnny podcast guy? What's his deal? You know,
he gave himself that name.
Oh yeah, and just really quick, a quick side note, John, we got some breaking news for our favorite listeners. We just got 14 million downloads. Man,
oh my god!
Yeah, 14 million downloads, and this hasn't even been released yet.
Jesus, man, I'm telling you, God,
man,
those click farms are well worth the money.
Oh, hell yeah, they are.
Oh man, I'm sorry. Here we go. Somebody will probably take that as me actually saying that's legitimate. So, oh yeah, I really did. So go play that in your feed there, asshole. Don't get my go.
Oh, and
moving on from that, don't get my go.
Yeah, and hey, you know what? If you think you get my go to that man, he gets my go. This kid, man, he gets my go.
What is a landmark episode of Get My Go? What are we on? Episode 12? Episode 11?
This is probably going to be, I think, 12 or 13. Not sure yet.
12, yeah. But we have, from the brand, of course, our most famous guest on the show, sure to rise the ratings and the views, and that is Jeff Lane. Jeff, how you doing today, man?
What's up, guys? Yeah, one of you guys, I don't know, one of you three had tweeted out a link to one of the episodes of this show, and I clicked on it, and I was just popping from start to finish. So I went back and listened to, I think I've listened to almost every episode now. I love this show.
Beautiful. You are our dream guest from the beginning. I think one of us mentioned we got to get Jeff Lane on here. I was like, yeah. I don't think he'll come on. He's pretty, he doesn't like to be confrontational like that. So here we are. We're so pleased to have you, man.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
When this started, or not even when this started, when John started going AWOL nuts and everything, and I remember Jeff saying to me, like, fuck it, just don't pay attention to this guy. Just don't give him, exposure. Don't drop his name. Don't mention him on the show. Don't just fucking let him disappear. And of course, he did a good job of that himself. So, but now that Jeff's seen the show and heard some of the clips, he's seen how amusing it can be to actually to make fun of him, and it's certainly not giving him any good exposure. So,
well, no, it's hilarious. I just always have gone by that. I learned that the hard way. If people are using you to get attention, the best thing you can do is just ignore it. So that's always what I went by. But after watching the show, man, I've been dying. Like, okay, that was wrong.
Well, that's kind of what he did too, because before we start the clips, let me ask you, because he was on Creative Control Network for a minute, and that's I constantly say Husey sent him my way. He denies that because nobody wants to take the blame for this. And but I noticed a little bit into his run with Creative Control just before he left was when he did Castrating the Marks. And we actually played that video on here before, and of course had a good time laughing at him being a horrifyingly terrible suck up and really just kissing your ass and pretty much licking the ground you walk on.
Well, Vince, for this next castration, we have a special guest. This is a guy who had me on his show a few weeks back, the Wrestling with Reality podcast. It's on Joe Feeney's Creative Control Network. And on the show, he asked me this.
Jeff, it would make my life in my honor if I could come on Castrating the Marks, and anytime you would have me and do a Dave Meltzer, I want to castrate Mark so bad with you guys. It's like a dream of mine. I know it sounds so cheesy to some people listening. That's how much I love the brand and Vince and Jeff and what they do. It would be an honor of mine if I could come on for 5 minutes, an hour, whatever you would have me on to come join you guys on the show, because I would love to castrate Mark. Please, sir.
And that changed a couple of months later, of course. But I guess my question was, how did he get on the show? How did you hear of him? Because then you did his show too, right?
Yeah, he had reached out to me to do a show. And so I listened to a couple of their episodes, and I thought it was a decent show. They were good hosts, professional hosts. So I said I'd go on the show because, you know, I don't go on many podcasts. So I went on the show, and I thought we had a good show. And he asked me on the show if he could come on castrating the marks. And so I told him, yeah. And we let him come on the show.
Did he do any name dropping? Did he attempt to use my name or creative control to get your attention?
I don't remember. Yeah, I honestly don't remember anything that we talked about on that show. I don't.
But the one thing I come back to is that when he eventually turns against you and Vince and talks shit and all this, which we're going to hear, is that you actually did him a favor by letting him on the show, because most of the time for someone to be a guest on the show, or all the time really, is when they buy a shirt on Pro Wrestling Tees that you get to come on and do the show. And everybody understands that. You know, that's fans of the brand. They have no problem with that. You buy a shirt, you get to do your little appearance, and everybody has a good time with it. But John finagled his way onto the show without buying a shirt, right?
Yeah, and I didn't have a problem with it. You know, he had me on his show. I had no problem with it. Sure, come on for a few minutes. You know, he seemed really nice. We'll plug your show on ours. And you know, and then he came on and asked Vince to do his show, and Vince did his show too.
When did you first notice he was turning against the brand, turning against you guys?
Well, he put out this YouTube video just ripping a promo on Vince, and I had an issue with that. I wish I could remember the specifics. It had something to do with what he said about Matt Kuhn and brand members. I don't remember what exactly it was. John didn't agree. That's fine. But he put out this public video bashing Vince on it. And so I emailed it. I'm like, man, what do you like? If you have Vince's email, he came on your show. If you have an issue with what he says, why don't you just email him and talk about it? But, you know, I said, you know, we had you on the show. We put over your show. Vince did your show. He doesn't hardly do anybody's show. You know, he didn't have to do your show. And then to me, it was like he was trying to get the rub by bashing Vince that a lot of people get. Whether he was or not, I don't know. That's the opinion I got. But when you do a favor for somebody and then they do that to you, like, to me, I've dealt with enough of that in my life. Like, that's it, done. Like, you showed me who you are to me, and I don't, you know, I didn't know him well enough to try to make up and do that. Like, I just cut things off at that point. And so, you know, he had emailed me back. I didn't even, you know, read it because I was done at that point, and it just escalated from that point, I guess.
Yeah, and I think eventually down the line he realized what a mistake he had made, because then later in the year you would see him kind of kissing up to Vince again and the brand and all this, and you could see that he was trying to get the rub again, whether it was by trying to make up with Vince and have him on his show or whatever. And I always said, because we were in a war at that time or having problems, it's like, dude, Vince might not remember specifically who you are, but Jeff is not going to forget. Like, no matter how much you kiss up now, dude, you blew it. You already blew it because of all that bullshit you pulled. But the clip that we're going to play today, there's a couple of segments, and the first one and the second one actually are both from Hambone's show. And this is after Mike had John on his show when it was on Realm, when it was on the brand. And you decided, I'm not putting this fucking guy on here. There's no way, after everything that he said or whatever. So then Hambone had John on, and this guy, Aaron Pavis, he did a show with Creative Control. He probably from the bedroom to the booth, good guy, and brand member.
Yeah, so I like Aaron. He from Ireland, if I remember correctly. Yes. So they basically did a little roundtable thing to talk about it, and I've selected some of the more juicier tirades and sentences and clips and all that, and Mike has one too. But here's the one, and if it seems like normally it kind of seems like John's doing a big run-on sentence, in this case it's the editing. I will say that I just ran everything together. But okay.
So
before we get into that, though, I must first do one thing. I must publicly admit to the world and to Jeff Lane that I was wrong. Jeff was 100% in the right to ban John Wangland from my show when I was on the brand. I had issue with it then, but in hindsight, he made an excellent executive decision to ban John Wangland and also Brother Martin from my show and ban these two guys from appearing on the brand network. So, Jeff, my apologies. You were right. I was wrong.
Hey, yeah, no issues, man. The way I look at it is, it's not my network. It's Vince's network. So if I know somebody is trashing him publicly or saying things, I'm not going to let them get on his network. You know, that's the way I looked at it. And if it was my network, you know, there could have been some negotiating. Maybe, you know, I would have looked at it differently, but it's not mine. And I didn't want to let somebody get exposure on his network that did that to him. That's just what my thinking was at the time.
And if you remember, I agreed with Jeff at the time. Just not to pat myself.
I remember it was on K100. You agreed.
And it actually, that was before any of us knew we were in a war with this guy, because everyone was still acting civilly. And I'll cover some of that when we talk about this, but he was already doing things like backbiting everyone and leaving bad reviews under a false name and all this shit before anyone realized they were in a fight. He was already trying to cut people at the knees. But this is from Hambone's show. Like I said, some of it's going to seem like it runs together, but again, like Mike said, anybody wants to talk, just throw your hand up.
If you were invited on, John, would you go on right now? No? Why not?
Sorry, my mic was off there. No, I would not go back on, to be honest with you.
How come?
I just don't really want to be associated with them, to be honest with you, buddy. If they wanted to have a private conversation, or if they, I'll say this, if they wanted to have a public conversation, in a neutral forum, I would do it. It doesn't have to be on my show. I don't care about that. It doesn't do anything. Like if they wanted to do it on somebody else and have a conversation, I'd be happy to. I've offered to do that. So that's out there. I don't have any urge to do their stuff. And I like the brand, man. I think there's a lot of great people out there. I mean, I could name 1,000,001 nice people over there. So, I mean, I've had my moments too.
Compliment sandwich.
Yeah, Jeff, there's a thing that we figured this out. You probably heard it if you listen to the past episodes. John likes to do a compliment sandwich. He'll build somebody up, Jeff Lane, great guy, does a great job. Guy's a big piece of shit, but I wish him the best of luck. That's what he'll do, and you'll consistently hear the brand is great. The brand is great.
But
the brand is a bunch of full of con men. Yeah.
Yeah, except for Husey, I've noticed doesn't get the sandwich.
No, never. He just gets the FU.
Oh. But I'll say something real quick. Like that. That was my issue in the first place, was that he went public with the stuff instead of talking to Vince private. So, obviously I had no interest in addressing this publicly because that was my issue at the time in the first place. And I don't even know if Vince knew about it. Like I didn't send it to him. I don't like to send him that stuff because, a lot of people, well, not a lot, but there's been some people since we started the brand that have turned on him in that way, and I know what it does to him because he's like, I try to do these things and then they like expect it and stuff. And so I try not to send him. So I don't even know if he knew about it. So, there was no, he didn't offer it to me. If he did, I didn't see it, but I wouldn't have accepted a public thing anyway.
How did you see the first video that he did anyway? Did you got your snitches out there? Someone send it to you, or?
I think somebody emailed it to me, but I'm not correct. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm correct on that. My memory sucks. It's been, I think, like a year or whatever. But either somebody emailed it to me or tweeted it or something.
There's a couple wackos and everything. They spoil it for everybody. So I'm not knocking the brand. The situation was taken care of by the guys over in those groups. After me and Hambone had that thing, Joe Rod took care of that, man, and the other guys.
Right, great guy.
Great guy, man. So there's great people over there. So I'm not putting anybody out there like with that. I don't have any urge to go on his show or really do anything with them anymore. I'll say it. I would do it if it was really important to them and they really wanted to do it that bad on their show. I would do it. I wouldn't prefer to do it because I really don't care about their stuff enough anymore to go do it. But I would contemplate it and think it. I'm not a big enough thing that they would even want to do that, so that's fine. But if they really wanted to have that conversation badly with me on the show, and they're going to be polite and respectful and have a conversation, no yelling, no arguing, I would consider it because I'm not going to yell or argue at them. I'm not going to do that stuff. As long as it would be respectful, I will gladly sit over there and do it. Yeah, I wasn't fretting about it, and I love Mike to death. Mike's a great friend.
Yes,
he's a great guy.
Is.
Mike sent me it. I'm like, cool, that's fine. I said I kind of figured something like that from them, whatever.
Right.
I like to. Mike asked me, not the other way around.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
It's always,
That's what I was gonna say. That was a lot of demands for not wanting to do it.
Yeah, I don't want to do it, but no impolite language, no yelling. Has to be on an independent forum. Like, what does that mean? Besides the fact that, like you're saying, like Vince likely doesn't know anything, if just a little bit maybe about any of this. So for him to even fantasize that there's a possibility there's going to be some showdown on a show somewhere, it's not going to happen,
Yeah, and I don't think he did because I remember somebody had reached out to Vince and Vince accepted an interview, and one of you guys told me Vince doesn't know who this is.
Oh, it was Rob. Rob.
Yeah, I don't remember, but and so I had to kind of smarten him up. But I guess that stuff had already been worked out without my knowledge,
Yeah.
you know, and there was no issues there. But yeah, he didn't. I would put money on that he doesn't even know about that YouTube video.
Yeah, and at that time, Rob was still associated with them, so I had them in the same basket, you know.
Yeah.
But since, of course, that time, those guys split, just like everyone winds up splitting with this guy.
Asked to come on. You know, Mike asked me to do a show, and I think we talked for 30 or 40 minutes or whatever. I was on vacation, you know, so Mike needed some content to fill the show, and he had already asked me to do the show, and he had asked me if he can move it back a couple. He's going to do it at the end of the month when I launch my new show. And I said, yeah. I said, that's fine, Mike. And then he sent me a message, like I think it was like last Wednesday or something when I was or Thursday, maybe it was, when I was on vacation. And he said, hey, you got like 10 minutes or whatever. And I said, anytime for you, Mike. Oh, sure. You know, and we were shooting the shit. We were having fun. Now, one thing was mentioned. Mike wanted to know about the new show, what we're doing, things going on, just shooting the shit, and then joking about the whole podcast war fun that we do. And that was it.
Right.
Let me say it to everybody out there, because I do the creative control shows. Okay, guys, the podcast war thing is a joke. All right, to everybody that's out there. Some people think it's real and get.
Some people did think it was real. Some people definitely thought it was real, and it wasn't me. It wasn't Husey.
So what happened with that? Like, you guys were gonna do this thing, and then he took it seriously or something, or
Yeah, Husey started fucking with him, and then he would put hashtag podcast wars. And then I joined in and started messing with him a little bit, and then he would say things back. And then I had a problem with a guy named David Radigan, who had a show on Creative Control and then left to join John's network. And it wasn't because he left; it was just because we didn't particularly get along. We're fine now, though. And but that was around the time when John started doing a show with Dan Severn, or trying to, and then doing a show with Vampiro. And a lot of his tweets would be about these amazing numbers. He's crushing the brand. He's the number 3 wrestling podcast. And I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? So that, like, it went from podcast wars into like actual shots, you know, like, and Husey and I would frame it like we were joking, podcast wars, but it would really be like, dude, like, you get 0 interaction on Twitter. No one likes your shit. No one retweets it. I've never heard anyone mention your show ever. How could you possibly think you're that popular? You know, you're obviously lying. And then it came out down the line they were using the click farm gimmicks and all that. But that's how it went from like fucking around to sour, because eventually we started really calling him out for stuff, and he wasn't a big fan of that. And then he wound up getting suspended off Twitter and all that fun stuff. So that's when it took a left turn for sure.
Yeah, and anybody that has looked at podcast numbers knows the range for people, realistic numbers, if you have a name on your show or if you're just someone like me. You know the range. So when you see these ridiculous, everybody knows it's bullcrap.
Yeah.
You know, you're not beating Chris Jericho or whatever. You know, you're not beating Jim Ross.
No.
You know, I saw what our numbers were, and I had a good range with that. You know, and we had Vince Russo. It's Vince Russo's the brand. It's very unlikely that somebody that was not in the business, that doesn't have the name on the show with them, is going to get these giant numbers. You know, if Conrad did a show by himself, nothing against him, he's not going to get the numbers he gets with Eric Bischoff and Jim Ross and all that stuff. You know, it's just the way that it is. So these numbers, I mean, hearing stuff like that, you just throw a red flag immediately.
Yeah, and he wouldn't back down, and that's when it became more and more like actually heated. Like, dude, you're lying. And I would tell him on the side, like in DMs, like, dude, you sound stupid, and people are noticing. You sound nuts. Literally, everyone knows this isn't true. There's no way it's Austin, Jericho, Wangland. It's not the case, dude. It's just not the case.
Yeah, some people think you and Yuzi and Radican and all those people are really fighting.
Come on, dude. I'm not. They sent the whole thing to me, and we're doing it. I wasn't. They just started doing it and trolling my stuff as a joke, man. And I'm like, come on. We all have thick skin, and we're just having fun.
Well, it works. You know what I mean? It works.
It does. It evokes a reaction, doesn't it? To answer your question, Aaron, I'm a big fan, man, of his. I always was. He was always somebody I looked up to. I thought he was a good stand-up guy, and I still do. I'm not saying he's a bad person. I never did once say that he's a bad person at all. You know, that's never in my intention on that. That's
about Vince, of course. Mike, have you ever heard John say Vince is a bad person? I mean,
I've heard him go. I've heard him on both extremes. You know,
yeah,
he's a con man.
What does he think that Vince did to him?
He's going to get into it on here. It has something to do with John. He's probably a minister. Anybody can be a fucking minister, but so he considers himself like a theologian. Is that the way you say it? I can't speak anymore.
I have no idea.
Theology expert. I'll put it that way. And he thought Vince would preach stuff on his show, That's Life or whatever, and then do it incorrectly or use it as a way to make money or something. And first off, I'm thinking, isn't that what preaching is? Isn't preaching just a way to kind of make money? I mean, I went to Catholic school. I know how it works. But yeah, it was a strange thing. And then the paintings, he had a real issue with the paintings. Vince is he's going against his own morals by putting these ugly paint. I don't know. It's very strange. But that's what the initial video was.
The painting that did it was the triple threat one. It was the Bischoff brother Love, Bischoff brother Love and Heyman.
Yeah,
and that's the painting that set John off. I remember I think he invaded Vince's Twitch that night, and he was just going off about how he's a fake Christian, and you know that's not a Christian thing to do, is to mock people and draw them, and you know.
What he did to you guys, same thing, right?
Yeah, and when he did worse things, where he tried to frame Husey and I as racist, and he went and contacted our podcast provider and all this stuff. So he wouldn't be getting heat like this if he didn't do things that were way, way worse. You know, otherwise I wouldn't take such joy in this.
Thing was, the whole Coon thing happened. I like Jeff Lane. Jeff was a very nice guy when I had him on my show. Very nice guy. He was a gentleman, you know, very respectful guy, you know, a lot of fun, really engaged.
Compliment sandwich.
There's so much more to him than people know. No, he's a good dude, man. He really is. Like, he's got a good heart to him. He does care about people and stuff. Jeff's downfall is he is a snowflake, man. He is snowflakeish. He's very sensitive to anything, and he doesn't take criticism well. He doesn't handle criticism well, and if he says he does, I would highly disagree with that. So it is what it is. My criticism was never against him at all. He didn't watch the whole video. It was like for like 3 days straight, like them going back and forth, it seemed. So yeah, so we all came to bat for him, man. And
his point was, I remember when I was editing it, that when you and Matt Coon had the thing back and forth on Twitter, he came to your defense or something like that. And I don't know. And then so since he came to your defense, you should have given them the benefit of the doubt, I guess.
But I'm still lost on, like, what am I not taking criticism on? Like, what was I criticized for that I did not take well? I'm so confused on that. My whole issue was him putting out a video about Vince. It had nothing to do with me, you know?
I think he means in general. Like, in general, this guy doesn't know how to take criticism or something. I don't know.
That's interesting. But that'd be like me saying that about you, Joe. Like, all the private conversations we have.
Yeah.
Right. Seriously, like, I've never had a private conversation with him. He doesn't know anything about me. So how would he know that?
Why would he get so offended that Vince drew a picture of Bruce, Eric, and Paul Heyman, 3 people he's never spoken to?
Right.
No idea. You know what I mean? But
right.
Strange dude.
Vince did nothing to really support him publicly because Matt was making him money, man. Vince is a money man. He's a businessman. Right. He wants your cash. He's gonna do whatever it takes to get the people's cash. He's gonna make people think and believe that he loves you and cares about you to get the cash, and that's fine. You know, if people want to give it to him, that's their business, man. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do with their money. But Vince is a businessman and he's a salesman and he's a good guy. He does have a good heart. You know, Vince did do my show.
That was a lot of either he's a charlatan, good word, who's lying to people to take their money, or he's a good guy with a good heart in the same sentence.
Yeah. What is he saying to people to get their money? Like, we're not really putting out all these shows that we put out. I mean, I don't understand. When has he ever promised we were going to do something in the brand and then not deliver it? You know, what are these people paying for then? That's just very confusing to me. Yes, it's a business. Of course it's a business.
That's what people, like, we joked around. Even we had Rey Mysterio on Keeping It 100 last week, and he asked on air Conan if he could get a free hookup to the Patreon. Conan's like, absolutely not.
I don't even know how to do that.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's no hooking up in this business. No way.
I was grateful for that. Vince did bring me on Castrating the Marks. I was grateful for that. Jeff did my show. I was grateful for that. Those are the 3 things they did for me. Did it help me get a little exposure? Absolutely, got me a little bit of exposure at the time. But, you know, I want to be honest with them too, is I already had exposure at that point, and I already had my own name. Not as big as it was, you know, they definitely helped it. But
I'm a prime example of that, because I didn't know who you were until Jeff on your show. You know what I mean?
And that's what it does. That's the beauty of having guests and doing other things.
Just my interruption on that is the fact that at that time I did have access to John's numbers, and I can say that the Jeff Lane appearance was something like 10 times higher than his normal amount of downloads, maybe 12 times higher. So it was certainly more than a little bit. It drew a lot of ears to his show the time that you were on there, by a lot comparatively, you know?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. If I go on somebody's show and I get 2 new people to know who I am, even one person, okay, that's a success. They didn't know who I was. He came on our show, not because of me. Vince Russo's on there. There's going to be people listening to the show that don't know who he is. And I know that a lot of brand members started checking his stuff out after he came on the show. And that's why I got so upset with the video that he put out about Vince. Cause it's like, dude, he just by allowing me to have you come on the show with him, that did a lot for you. That's just where I thought he went the wrong direction with that video.
Yeah, and that's literally the guy Aaron on there with him just went, I didn't know who you were till Jeff was on your show, proving the point.
You get exposed to different demographics and people that might not hear you. There's 725,000 podcasts in the world. There's probably 50,000 wrestling podcasts that are out there right now. It's difficult without a name to get over. So when you have guests or you reach out with people, you're going to gain a few people here and there, and that's how you grow it. That's why I tell people with podcasting, if you want to grow it, you just got to keep going with it. You got to put the work in. You got to do different interviews. Sometimes you got to do shows with other people. You just got to keep going. So yeah, it definitely helped that he did that. I had a very nice audience that had grown at that point, and they helped it even more.
Yeah, it's like Jeff's trying to make it out that if it wasn't for him and Vince, you wouldn't have a podcast. But the reality is, you already had a podcast before then. I was doing very well at it too. And when I went on my own, people said, and I started my own network, people said that I would never get anywhere. I don't have a name. I don't have anything, blah, 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 and I'm one, and I'll say this, I'm not trying to sound egotistical here, but I have confidence in my abilities.
I obviously never said you wouldn't have a podcast if it wasn't for Vince. I went on his show first, so he already had a podcast, so that doesn't even make any sense. So I don't know where they got that from. I had never said that. I said Vince did you a favor by you being on his show. You got exposure. That's what I said. I never said you would never have a podcast. If that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, and the thing that he said about how people predicted that because he wouldn't be able to start his own network and be successful. And the simple, basically, he took a concept like the brand or like what I started doing with Creative Control. More, I think more so what I started doing with Creative Control, because I was the one, I started giving unknown people shows and trying to push them. The brands always had Stevie and Disco and stuff like that. And so he wanted to do the same thing with the Reality Check Network. The only problem was he didn't have a weekly outlet like I did at the time with Conan's show to a good audience to push my shit. John just had John. And the more he started fights with you guys or with me, the only people that he knew really, the worse it got for him, because his exposure level dropped to 0. There was no one to help him, and this is at the point now where he thinks things are going to start going well, and they just never clicked. And he became really, really bitter really fast.
I don't need to do interviews all the time to get over. I don't need to be on or have a famous person with me all the time to get over, in my opinion. Is it going to take longer? Yeah, it will. It's going to take way longer because I got to find my ways to do it. So I worked my ass off to get there. And I was working my ass off before I knew him, and I worked my ass off after. When I went out, my own people told me, it wouldn't go anywhere. You don't have a name. I tripled what I was doing with other people easily when I was with them before. And I'm in 8 or 9 countries on charts. So obviously I'm doing something right that people like listening every week. And I appreciate that. And I do believe
you're starting to sound like Matt Coon.
I know. That's what Lucy said to me and other people. It's not that. It's to say that
I'm joking. I'm only joking.
I know you are.
Yeah, he's number 8 in Bolivia. That's really gonna help the sponsorships.
I never understood even if the numbers were legit, bragging about it. What does that accomplish? I never go on a show and say, hey, we beat so-and-so this week in signups. I know Vince did it with Bischoff just because it was Bischoff, but I don't think that unless you're thanking people for a milestone or something, hey, we just hit 1,000 for the first time. Thank you to everybody, and then move on. But when you're bragging, I did this, I did that. It should be they did that. The audience did that for us. That's just the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm. And he phrases it wrong, of course. Me, I.
And that's why I said to people, don't let it come across as ego-driven, because as quick as I could have those is, look at Matt Cooney, he's a great example. I'm not an asshole, and I'm not ego-driven. I'm not saying I'm a big name. I'm not saying I'm the greatest podcaster in the world or the best wrestling show. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying we've worked hard to grow it where it's at, and we're really proud of that. And yes, little guests that we've had on have helped other people. I've made a lot of friends in the wrestling community because of this, and the mixed martial arts community.
No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. Not at all. And I agree with what you said. It's like if 1 week, say he got 10,000 downloads, which he didn't. So you go on and you say, last week we got 10,000 downloads. And then the next week you get 6,000. What are you going to say? Oh, shit. I just lost I don't even know why I lost half my downloads this week. You're not going to say anything ever again. You're just setting when you do something like that, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up to fall.
I've had a lot of great business opportunities that I've developed and that other people are coming on board with. But Jeff and them, I don't like that fact when you act like you helped get me on the map, because let me tell you, you didn't help get me. You helped me a little bit when I came on. I was starting to get on the map then, and I've been on the map after because I worked my ass off at it. That the brand is a niche market of a few thousand people. Yeah. I don't need a niche market. I want a big market. So Jeff didn't listen to that whole damn video.
I did listen to his whole video. I listened to the whole thing, but like I would have never said we put you on the map because I would have never considered him on the map. I don't consider myself on the map. But I don't consider myself on the map. No one would know who I was if I wasn't on a show with Vince. I do stuff by myself. The numbers are paltry compared to him. So I don't even consider myself on the map. So I would never say we put you on the map. Like that's just not something I say. The exposure again. Yes, Vince helped you. He gave you exposure. I'll say that all day long. I believe that. That's what I said.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to say the exact same thing. Like, no, you weren't on the map before, and you're certainly not on the map now. So it's pretty wild for him to say that. But
he was saying that I was raising my voice at people. No, I wasn't raising my voice and yelling at people. I'm a very direct talker, so people take that wrong sometimes. And I was in the military for 12 years. I was an instructor for 4 years, where that was my job, to be direct to young kids that were coming right out of their mommy and daddy's house, and I had to whip them into shape. That's how I am. I talk direct. I talk straight. I shoot straight. I don't lie.
There's a lot there.
I don't remember saying he yelled, but it's possible I said that there was like anger in his voice, because you guys have heard it when he changes, and you can tell when he changes and he starts like, the hatred, it sounds like it's coming from a place of hatred. That I got out of his video. I don't remember saying, I guess it's possible I said he was yelling. I don't know why I would have, but I like the disdain. You can hear the disdain in someone's voice.
Yeah.
That's what I got out of that video.
Right. I remember it. I wish it could be located. At this point, no such luck so far. But
yeah,
all I have is the response that he tried to put up a logical version of it, and it was called a friendly message to Vince Russo and Jeff Lane or something. I think we played some of that on here, but
yeah, I don't think you guys did. I got to find that episode then, because I don't think I've heard that.
Yes,
I haven't caught all the episodes of this show yet. I'm getting there.
Yeah, someone said to me the other day, you got to do this episode. And I was like, I swore we did some of it. Maybe we didn't.
I don't blow smoke up people's ass. That's just how it is. So I wasn't yelling in that video.
Oh, but that I wanted to say. When on there, he says he's straightforward. He's not a liar, blah, blah, blah. This was August or September of last year. And there's reviews under a pseudonym already under his name in April, May, July, and June against Husey, against other shows that were named Wrestling with Reality before him. He was already snaking people before this. So the dude's very, very not...
While he's being friendly to their face.
Yeah, he's not up front at all. And it took a little while to learn that, but...
I wasn't being demeaning towards him. We were standing up for Jeff in that video because Vince was going on God as an example to people, and he was using it as a false prophecy once again. And here's Jeff, this poor guy. Vince isn't even standing up for him. That's why I did the video on hypocrisy. Matt's making him money, so he's not going to sit over there and dog Matt out for how mean he was being Jeff. So it's like you mentioned a good point, though, with what you were saying, is that, he kind of acts like it's like they got us to the point.
I kind of remember some of this now hearing about that, because I remember Vince didn't say anything one way or the other when like me and Matt had our little spat or whatever. And people were like, why isn't he sticking up for you? And all I told him is, A, I don't need him to fight my battles. And B, you don't know the conversations that have been had privately. That's not a matter we take public. Vince ain't going to take that public. So when people don't see him coming out and saying something public, they assume that he's throwing me under the bus or he doesn't care about me, when that's not the case at all. Obviously, if he was treating me like crap, why am I still there?
Right.
If I feel like if I'm wronged, why would I still be there? So that's the thing. People only go by what they hear, but they don't know the conversations that were had, off in private. And I think that's what he's talking about there.
Yeah. And I guess he thinks he was defending you and taking your side. So that's why he thinks you should have given him the benefit of the doubt off this video he thinks you didn't watch, but you had watched and obviously formed an opinion based off of it, you know?
Yeah, and I think he did say nice things about me and stuck up for me in that video, but I will never say, okay, you can, since you're sticking up for me, the bashing of this other person that's unwarranted, I'll accept it. Like I can't, that's selfish. You know, that's selfish because Vince did do a lot for me that nobody knows about, you know, in things that they don't know. So there was no reason for Vince to publicly come out and say, I support Jeff or I support Matt. We're both freaking men. We don't need, like, he's our dad, needs to come out and say which one of us needs to go in timeout. Yeah. You know, but for some reason, some people expected that, and that was confusing to me.
You know, and like I said, I'm definitely appreciative. They helped out. I've said it, thank you a million times. I've said it thousands of times, it seems. You know, they helped out, but I worked really hard to get where I'm at. I'm not sounding whatever it is, but I am confident in my abilities because I feel that I can make a real go out of this eventually with things in our business and our model. So, you know, once again, I'll say it. Jeff, Vince, thank you for coming on my show. Thank you for helping getting me exposed to different people. I greatly appreciate it. I greatly appreciate some of the nice things you do. I think you're both very talented guys. I really do, 100,000%. So when Jeff got mad at my YouTube rant, because my YouTube rant was in relation to how Vince just no-sold it because of Matt Coon, you know, and just try to mooch more money off of people, just doing the whole thing about God, using that as try to get some of these sheep to sit over there and engage more money with him. And he uses God in the wrong platform and in the wrong ways all the time. And how can I tell people that and with certainty? Because I'm a minister too, and I've been to theology school. I have my degree in it as well. So, you know, I'll say that, man.
Yeah, I saw Mike shaking his head. I don't believe any of that.
The Christian That's Life show is free, by the way. You don't have to pay to hear that show.
Yeah.
That was been his thing to me since day one. The show needs to go out for free.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know how he's trying to use God to get people's money. None of the shows on the brand are God related except for that one, and it's free. So I'm really confused by that. I've never been on an episode with Disco and Vince brings up God to try to sell the Disco show, you know, or I've never once seen him try to use God to earn money for us. Not once. That's just wrong. That is just wrong for him to say.